How does a teenage entrepreneur, an Air Force veteran, and a convicted felon all describe the same man? The metal prison door slammed shut behind him. Frederick Hutson barely flinched. The sound had become background noise. Just another reminder of where he was. But what nobody knew, not the guards, not the other inmates, and certainly not the system that put him there, was that Hutson wasn't just serving time. He was building something. While others counted down the years, Hutson was counting up ideas, testing theories in his mind, sketching out blueprints in his head. He watched how the system worked, how inmates struggled to stay in touch with their families, how phone companies gouged the people who needed them most. And in that tiny prison cell, Hutson made a decision. He would turn his sentence into a startup. This is the story of how a convicted felon built a multi-million-dollar company from behind bars, changed an entire industry, and proved that even prison couldn't cage a great entrepreneur. Before we dive into this incredible journey, make sure to subscribe for more business stories, unlikely successes, and the lessons they teach us about business and money. Before he was an inmate, Frederick Hutson was a soldier, and before that, a boy. Frederick Hutson was never one to sit still. Even as a child growing up in Brooklyn, New York, he had a restless energy, always searching for the next opportunity. He wasn't drawn to trouble, he was drawn to solutions. When other kids were playing, Frederick was thinking about how to turn small ideas into money. He sold candy at school, ran errands for neighbors, and fixed bikes just to make a few extra dollars. But life in Brooklyn wasn't easy. His family eventually moved to Florida, hoping for a better future. Young Frederick to realize that success wouldn't come from waiting, it had to be built. He was barely a teenager when he started his first real business, a window tinting company. While other kids his age were spending their weekends at the beach or playing video games, Hutson was busy making deals, learning how to negotiate, and figuring out how to make his work stand out. It wasn't just about money, it was about control. He liked knowing that his effort determined his success. Yet no matter how hard he worked, he wanted more. He wanted something bigger, something beyond what Florida had to offer. That's when he made a decision that would change everything. He joined the U.S. Air Force at only 17. The military gave him something he had never experienced before: discipline, structure, and exposure to a world far larger than he had ever known. While stationed, he learned about logistics, efficiency, operations, and how to move things from point A to point B with precision. The very things that make businesses run smoothly. Skills he would use in a way nobody expected. But as much as he respected the military, Hutson knew deep down that he wasn't meant to follow orders forever. He had the mind of an entrepreneur, and the hunger for something greater never left him. When he left the Air Force, he faced a choice: follow the conventional path or take a risk in pursuit of success. He chose the latter, but in his search for financial independence, he made one decision that would change the course of his life forever. What happened next would cost him everything, or so it seemed. After his service, he faced a hard truth. Discipline didn't pay the bills. He saw people around him making serious money, and he wanted in. That's when he noticed an opportunity, one that was illegal, dangerous, but extremely profitable. Marijuana distribution was booming, but unlike the chaotic street-level dealers, Hutson had a different approach. He wasn't interested in dime bags and corner hustles. To Hutson, this was business 101. Find a problem, build a solution. Most inmates dream of getting out and starting fresh. Hutson wasn't dreaming, he was planning. Using nothing but a prison library and a notebook, he started mapping out a business. He saw logistics, supply chains, efficiency. So he built a drug empire the way a CEO would. He established shipping routes, negotiated deals, streamlined transportation, and made sure product moved fast, quietly and with precision. The money poured in. By 23, he was living like a corporate executive. No debt, no financial stress, just pure profit. But that's the thing about fast money. It never lasts. The feds were watching. When the raid came, it was quick, brutal, and absolute. Hutson was arrested, charged, and sentenced to 51 months in federal prison. In an instant, his empire was gone. His freedom was gone, but his mind was still free. Prison wasn't just a punishment. It was a lesson in human suffering. Hutson saw fathers cut off from their kids, mothers struggling to afford calls to their sons, families breaking apart because the system made it nearly impossible to stay connected. The problem was massive, but no one was fixing it. Here's what he found out. The prison communication industry was a $1.2 billion market. Phone calls were insanely expensive. Some families paid hundreds per month just to hear their loved one's voice. Sending pictures or letters was slow, complicated, and outdated. What if there was a simple, affordable way for families to stay connected with inmates? What if he could disrupt the industry that was exploiting the people who needed it most? By the time Hutson walked out of that prison gate, he had a plan. Starting a business is hard. Starting a business as a convicted felon with no money, no connections, and no investors? Nearly impossible. Hutson quickly learned that society doesn't forgive easily. Banks wouldn't give him loans. Investors didn't trust him. Every door was slammed shut before he could even knock. But prison had given him something even more valuable than freedom: persistence. So he did what all great entrepreneurs do. He found a way. He joined a startup accelerator and convinced them to give him a $100,000 investment. He built a prototype using freelancers and borrowed cash. He pitched his idea relentlessly, but unsurprisingly, was getting rejected from all angles.
No.
Why should they invest in a business owned by a convicted felon? Then a breakthrough. New Me, a Silicon Valley accelerator focused on underrepresented founders, accepted him into their program. This was his foot in the door. Through New Me, he gained mentors, resources, and credibility. But he needed proof, something undeniable to show investors that his business had real demand. That's when Hutson and his co-founder, Alfonso Brooks, launched a bold experiment. They sent 500 picture postcards to inmates, encouraging them to tell their families about the service. The results were staggering. Over 25% of the recipients signed up. That single campaign turned skepticism into belief. With data in hand, Hutson secured over $1 million in venture funding, and Pigeonly took off. A simple, genius platform that allowed families to send photos, messages, and make calls to inmates at a fraction of the cost. The demand was instant. Within months, thousands of families signed up. More investors started paying attention. Suddenly, the same people who once refused to meet with him were throwing money at his startup. Over time, Pigeonly grew into a multi-million-dollar business, processing millions of inmate calls and messages every year. The ex-convict had just disrupted an entire industry. Frederick Hutson's story isn't just about redemption. It's about seeing opportunity where no one else does. It's about turning rock bottom into a launch pad. It's about proving that your past doesn't define your future. Today, Hutson is a respected entrepreneur and business leader, proof that even the worst mistakes can lead to something great. Because in the end, it's not about where you've been, it's about what you build next. Now let me ask you, if you came across a brilliant business idea, but it was led by a former prisoner, would you invest in it? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more fascinating business stories.